Welcome YouTube to another D&D Fridays. Today we'll be taking a look at just, since the holiday season is around, just maybe some of the cool stuff that could happen and cool idea or gift ideas that maybe a D&D person would thoroughly enjoy. But before we get into that list, don't forget hit that subscribe button, that notification bell, and definitely comment down below. Without further ado, let's check out this list. So I would say there's a lot of cool gift ideas and the like that's out there these days, especially over the course of the last few years. D&D kind of blown up, I would say, around a lot of people. So there's a lot of stuff that one could potentially get. I think for anybody, whether it's for a GM or a player, I think dice are always cool, especially if you know that person is a dice hoarder. There's everything from your regular dice to your metal dice, your bone dice. I think there might be even wooden dice out there. So there's any and everything from like Amazon to your local game store to other companies. So there's lots of options of where you can get those dice, and maybe you pick up an extra set of dice for yourself. That could always be a good thing to do. Treat yourself.
Treat yourself a little bit. Increase your dice collection. Yeah.
Yeah. And while we're on dice, minis are also another good option if you play in a campaign that uses minis. So whether it's just your standard run of the mill mini, or if it's something from Hero Forge, that's always a pretty good mini to really get from somebody.
Yeah, if you wanna go all out and totally wow them, yeah. Hero Forge is a great place to get those minis from for sure.
And if you happen to be a painter or know somebody that paints, then they could really paint in another and paint up one of your minis if they're just the basic gray or white minis.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good suggestion, right? You don't have to go all out and get, super expensive minis that are already painted and you know, uh, fresh, come really fancy out of the box. You can always go buy, you know, little cheaper ones and then paint them yourselves and give that as a gift. That personal touch will always carry a little bit more weight, right? That you put in the extra time to do that for a friend or a family member.
Mhm. And and this next idea is more so for GMs. Maps. GMs are always going to love maps, whether it's something from Starfinder, Pathfinder. D&D has some big pull-out maps or what have you. Both the square version and the hex grids. So I think that's going to be. I think GMs would definitely love you, and who knows, they might give you a little extra inspiration during the next session. Who knows?
I see where you're going there. Um, yeah, you've got your erasable maps, or like you said, your Starfinder, your Pathfinder, or any other type of map that you can use to lay out. You could buy little tiles, right? Little dungeon tiles that you can build up. There is the is it World Anvil? I don't remember the company, but you could buy really nice really nice map sets for place settings, right? Like if you want to really jazz up a dungeon battle, you can get them a really nice dungeon looking dungeon set, right? If you want to go a little bit more on the expensive side, but there's a wide range of map type of ideas that you can look at getting.
Agreed. And then also for I think a good gift for anybody is there's a ton of source books out there. So first off, like if you know somebody that's just trying to get into D&D, something like the Player's Handbook, Xanathar's, Tasha's, or even the DMG Monster Manual, that type of stuff, always useful.
Yep.
And then depending on the person, they could love either the physical hardback copies or maybe a digital version on D&D Beyond. So I think
Yep.
that's going to be useful. And then not only that, but if you know somebody that's really interested in any of the modules, which beyond the Wild Beyond the Witchlight or Tome of Annihilation or whatever, those would be pretty good to get somebody.
Yeah. If if they're somebody that's already into D&D and you kind of know what sort of source material to get, I think getting them a book or something like that's a great idea. If it's a new player, you can always give them a starter kit and try and introduce them. That those always can come off as good gifts if you want to pull somebody else into your party and into your group. Um, Thinking of D&D Beyond, you could always get them you know a couple months free for D&D Beyond. Let them start trying that out. I think that's you know in my mind that's essentially like a gift card um, that you can give them. So, and I know those have become wildly popular as of recently. So there's a lot of good ideas there too.
Yeah, but I agree. I really like the mention of D&D and Beyond, because that is pretty popular these days, and who wouldn't like just tote around their laptop, their iPad, whatever, and just have everything at their disposal right then and there.
Right.
And then also more specifically for GMs, I know there's a lot of different GM screens out there, such as like a Wilderness Kit GM that lists out a lot of like wilderness survival stuff. There's a GM screen for like Descent into Avernus if a certain GM's trying to really get into that more like hellscape type of things. Or like there's a GM screen for Curse of Strahd that lists out some sort of like vampire-y type of stuff on it. So depending on what your GM might like or want to do, getting them their specific type of GM screen, I think, will be very useful.
Yeah, that's actually a really great idea. Um, Again, I know I've said this a couple of times, but there's quite the range of different DM screens that you can look at getting. You can get simple ones that have all of the notes and stuff on them, all the way up to you know specialty ones that are very expensive. Right? You've got a big wide range, and depending on how much you actually like or love the person, it depends on um, or how much you want to try and sweet talk your DM by giving them a pretty nifty gift. You could get them one of the higher end DM screens for sure.
Yep, agreed. Another thing that I think a lot of GMs would like are there's definitely a lot of different like monster manual PDFs and the like out there that really adds on a lot of extra uh, monsters for the GM to use that's not within the monster manual or Volos. So that's going to be very useful for a GM because maybe you have a veteran GM that utilized pretty much all the monsters in the monster manual and Volos. They might get tired of reusing the same monster over and over again, so I think that'll be a refreshing thing to
Yeah,
do.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
And then also for GMs, there's another book that I think a lot of folks would probably like called The Monsters Know What They're Doing Codex. So it pretty much gives out a lot of strategies for how to actually run a lot of the monsters within like the monster manual and stuff. So maybe a GM might not know how to run a dragon or something like that. So that's going to be very helpful in just learning, and maybe even if you don't want to run it exactly like that, that gives you some idea of what monsters might do, so you have an idea of how to tweak them to your liking.
Right. Yeah, that's actually a really good suggestion for those up and coming DMs that haven't done a lot of campaigns or encounters. We'll give them some more insight on how to up their game. Yeah.
Yeah. Then I think the next one for next gift idea that is for any and everybody are some sort of dice tray. Um, I, there's there's many varieties of dice trays, just your regular dice tray, your little rubber snap together dice trays. There's dice trays where you can have dice around the outer edge of it. So there's a lot of different cool looking designs and stuff like that. So I think that's going to be pretty cool for anybody.
Mhm.
I mean, who doesn't like to roll their dice in a dice tray? And if you know somebody that has metal dice, that's going to be well needed for them.
Even better, even better.
It's just much better to roll a metal dice in a dice tray than on somebody's wooden table.
Yes, very much. You don't want to be the reason why there's a big old dent in that table.
Or why your GM is getting cussed out by their mom, their wife, or whoever.
Very true. Very true.
So there, so that's definitely a good option, and I'll say that another good option that I would probably recommend to anybody is maybe take a look and see what sort of books and PDFs that list out a lot of like random encounters. I think that'll be good for GMs as that. But sometimes the hard thing to do is to create a random encounter on the fly, because if you've been playing D&D for a while, you know that players tend to not always follow the plans that you've laid out as a GM. So being able to say, all right, let me pick up a random encounter where and when need be, I think that's going to be pretty good.
Yep. Yep. Another another suggestion that I came up with was you can always find socks and T-shirts for D&D players. It has might have a D&D saying or a D&D character. So T-shirts and socks are always a good idea for gifts too, especially for you know if it's got one of those funny sayings on it. People will enjoy wearing those around too.
Yeah, not only clothing, but also like posters and doormats and stuff like that are also, I would say, fit into that category as well.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
to so you can give anybody so they can pimp out their D&D room. Then I think another cool idea for anybody is just gifting them, whether it's like a Patreon or something like that, to maybe their favorite D&D person or something like that, so they can gain a lot of their content. So there's a lot of folks going around that have different items based on their subscription level. So I think just gifting somebody a certain subscription level to their favorite D&D YouTuber or something like that, I think that'll be very appreciative.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty cool idea uh, to give somebody a Patreon subscription for a couple of months. I think that's a very cool idea.
Yeah. Um, so there's definitely a lot of, I think, good ideas for GMs, for players, for both. Um, any ideas that come to mind that we might have missed?
Um, no, I mean I think we've covered a lot of the options. There's a wide range of things that you can look at getting, and I think as long as you get a gift out of love and appreciation for the person, at the end of the day, they're not going to really care what it is. And with it being the holiday season and Christmas coming up, and a lot of different people wanting to give gifts, any small gift, whether it's really small, just some dice, or some fancy, well designed, handcrafted DM screen will go a very long way and show your appreciation. So
Yep, I agree. Um, and as always, definitely be in the spirit of always giving, and never being so hard on your players or your GM, depending on which side of the GM screen you're on.
Giving a gift is a good way to ask for forgiveness too.
Yep. And I would probably say one final gift that I think is probably one of the most important gifts of all time in this trade is always the always the gift of time and the gift of being just a good person in general. So never being that YouTube appropriate word for what we're all thinking of right now. Don't be a awful person. I think that will go a long way for everybody at the table.
Definitely. Yes, I agree.
But with that, may some of these ideas speak to you as a viewer, and maybe you're stuck in a rut of what to get somebody, and hopefully one of these ideas maybe spurred some sort of thought or something of that nature, and may everything turn out pretty well, and happy holidays to everybody.
Definitely.
And until next time, everybody, keep y'all's lives geeky.
Goodbye, everyone.